and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's review, we're jumping not into a beer, but into a mead. If you've watched this channel for a while, you know that I absolutely love mead. We don't review a ton of them, but when I was getting some new beers to review that I've never had, I saw this on the shelf, and this was one I had to grab. Today's mead comes from Crafted Artisan Meadery. I've never had any of their products. They are based in Mogadore, Ohio. I'm guessing that's the pronunciation. And this mead is called Bananas Foster Forever. This one has added banana juice, coffee, and vanilla. And this one clocks in at 6% ABV. Now, that is actually quite low for a mead. Typically, a mead is going to be somewhere between 10 and 20%. They tend to lean kind of in the middle, 14, 15, 16%. That's kind of an average for meads, so very similar to an ABV on a wine, but this one's only 6%, so quite a bit lower than your average. In terms of label art, it's got a bee and a banana cartoon kind of dancing together on the label to get you in the mood. So yeah, let's just get this cracked. As always, this is room temperature. It is a mead. You do not have to chill mead. Some people do. I like mine at room temperature, and it is typically served at room temperature. So we're using our nice Prairie Artisan little stemware here. Get this poured. Oh yeah, that is looking lovely. And we'll stop it right about there. Visually, yep, that is that classic honey color. It is, of course, mead after all, made from honey, mixed into water and fermented. Let's give this a sniff. Okay, yeah. So you can smell the honey sweetness on the nose, but you can definitely smell a little bit of that coffee. It's got this nice coffee aroma coming out of the background. You rarely smell anything like that on a mead. Of course, that coffee addition. The banana kind of blends with the honey. You can smell a little bit, but the honey aroma is quite a bit pronounced. And interestingly, I cannot smell the vanilla on the nose. I'm expecting I'm going to get all of it in the flavor profile, but that's what I smell on the nose. It smells fantastic. It's got a nice pronounced aroma. The color looks fantastic. It's a mead. There's no head. They don't do that. It's not a carbonated beverage. So we're just going to jump right in and take a first sip, see what this is about. Ooh. Oh, man. That's really good. Wow. Okay. That is delicious. So before we even get into the flavor profile, let's talk texture and let's talk weight. This is only 6% ABV, but it still has good breadth to it. I would say this is a full medium body, which even a normal mead that's in that 15% range will typically have a little bit more breadth to it, but this does not feel out of the ballpark, especially considering this significantly lower ABV. It's quite impressive. The mouthfeel also has a really good bit of resistance. Now that's very common on a mead, but this only being 6% ABV, I honestly didn't expect it, but it feels the part. It feels like a mead. Really, really nice. In terms of the flavor profile, the first thing you get when you swallow is that telltale mead honey sweetness. Often you'll get meads that have a little bit of a boozy back to them, but this is a way lower ABV, so there's nothing boozy about this. You get that immediate pop of that honey sweetness, and then you get hit immediately with that coffee and that banana in tandem. Again, the vanilla on this is a bit subtle, which, you know my philosophy on it, vanilla is a very pungent ingredient. It's easy to go overboard with vanilla and have it drown out other aspects of your drink that you're making, but in this one, it's quite a subtle touch on the vanilla, both in terms of the aroma and in terms of the flavor profile. But in general, it feels really, really nice. It's got the right texture, it's got the right weight, and the flavor absolutely pops. And the lack of booziness just makes it really easy to dial right into exactly what you're tasting in the flavor profile. So these additives are really quite clear and they feel very balanced, with the exception of the vanilla. I would like a bit more vanilla to pop in this. Now, typically, Bananas Foster is a dessert that's going to be made with butter and cinnamon and brown sugar. So caramelized brown sugar, cinnamon, butter mixed, and they're also going to use some liqueur, and then it's flambéed. So vanilla would maybe, if you put it over like ice cream, you could add it, but traditionally that's not in the recipe for Bananas Foster, but cinnamon always is. Oftentimes you'll get some allspice or nutmeg as well, just a touch. So it's interesting that they added in vanilla, but they didn't put in cinnamon. But look, they're coming up with their own interpretation. There's not coffee in Bananas Foster either, typically, but this is very, very, very good. This is packed full of flavor, and it's absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to jump back in for a second sip. I'm going to let everything re-intensify. Then we'll talk about the finish on this one, but it's very, very nice on first sip. So take two. Honey sweetness, then immediate coffee and banana. The vanilla is very subtle. It's in the background. It's kind of having to vie for attention between the banana and the honey and the coffee. The coffee, banana, and honey all come in almost equal thirds in intensity, but it's very, very nice. Even though the vanilla is not as discernible, it's very faint on the background, just like it is on the nose, I gotta say that the total package is really, really nice. And in terms of the finish, you know, meads are not something you're going to think of as typically having a very long finish. You know, there's a bit of lingering flavor because they have nice intensity of flavor, but they don't linger like a bitter IPA is going to have tons of flavor compounds that are going to linger on the palate. This one, I would say, for the finish, very much average. It's wet and full and round all the way to the end, as you would expect on a mead, so no surprises there. In general, I got to say this is very, very nice. Not the exact flavor or aroma profile that I expected, but what they did do with this, I think it is absolutely delicious. Guys, this is one I'm going to take my time, sip on, come up with my scores, and when we come back, we will get this mead ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this mead, we are going to get it ranked. This was Crafted Artisan Meadery's Bananas Foster Forever. They are based in Mogadore, Ohio. This was brewed, call it brew if you want. It had added banana juice, coffee, and vanilla. That was the additives in this mead. This one clocked in at 6% ABV. So this was a very, very good mead, very interesting. It's exceptionally rare that you'll see a mead with an ABV that relatively low. I mean, you know, for a beer, 6%, that's kind of average, high average, depending on the style. But for a mead, that's very, very low. They typically, they're going to hit, you know, somewhere 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17%, somewhere in that window. So having this lower ABV was actually quite nice. You know, it didn't feel quite as heavy, but it didn't take anything away from the mead drinking experience at all. It was still packed full of flavor. It was still robust. Everything that you loved about a mead, just with a lower ABV. So maybe you could call this a session mead. They certainly didn't, but why not? Maybe we could start a thing. Regardless, I absolutely enjoyed this one. First mead I've had by this meadery. I will definitely be on the lookout for more. I did not get this from Tavour, nor from Crash Shack, nor any online source or Total Wine. I got this from a local liquor store around the corner that happens to have a very large selection of beer and ciders and meads. And this was just a new one I happened to find on the shelf. So let's jump right into the scores. Starting with the aroma on this was really, really nice. Very, very nice pungency on it. It smelled absolutely fantastic. The only thing that I could say was I just wished that I could have gotten some additional vanilla coming out of the nose. It was quite subtle, but it did smell very nice overall. The aroma, I did give a 9 out of 10. For the taste I absolutely loved. This is, I mean, it kind of sort of put me in mind of Bananas Foster a bit, but it kind of went in a different direction. The coffee edition was definitely a different direction, and the lack of the cinnamon and or nutmeg or anything down that kind of spice train kind of didn't, you know, really seal the Bananas Foster's deal for me. but it was still absolutely delicious. And kind of the same thing I would say on the aroma, I said the same about the taste. I would have liked some more vanilla in here to round out their additives, but other than that, I mean, a small nitpick, it is what it is. I really, really enjoyed what they did, and make no mistake, it was absolutely delicious. The taste, I also gave a 9 out of 10. For the body, this was a full body. I mean, 6% ABV on a mead, I didn't know what to expect, but you would not know that it had an ABV that relatively low for what it was. It was still big and in your face. It felt right. The body gets a perfect 10 out of 10. The mouthfeel, very, very similar story to the body. You still had that classic resistance that you feel on a mead. They're kind of interesting and, you know, put me in mind a lot of kind of the textural mouthfeel, the resistance, the viscosity you get when you're moving, say, a smoothie sour around on the palate. That's kind of the same sensation. On this one, I wasn't sure what to expect, again, because of this relatively lower ABV, but it still felt right for the mouthfeel. It still felt extremely thick and resistant, so the mouthfeel also gets a perfect 10 out of 10. For the finish, look, meads are not typically going to have a super long finish. This one had added ingredients, and, you know, it didn't have quite as high of an ABV, so some meads do linger on a little longer just based on their higher average ABV. This one was a bit lower, but it still had nice pungency, and overall it was average for a mead, so the finish does get a 5 out of 10. For the head and retention, it doesn't come into play in a mead, so we'll just give it a 10. For the appearance, this was classic mead. Even with the additions, it was a classic, true, bright golden yellow honey color. The appearance does get a 10 out of 10. For the balance, I alluded to this on aroma and taste, and for the same reasons, the same score here on the balance. Just a bit more vanilla would have been really nice to pop out and balance out the other additives. I docked 1 point. The balance gets a 9 out of 10. Feeling in the intangible, subjectively, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I'm a huge banana fan. Bananas Foster is one of my favorite desserts, and this was awesome in mead form, even with the twist. Feeling and intangible, I did give a perfect 10 out of 10. Then finally, example of style. So there was a lot to like about this, and this was a very, very well done mead. Really just a few little minor nitpicks, kind of with their additives. I would have liked a few things here or there. But really, I also took the ABV into consideration. Very non-normative. I don't consider it necessarily a negative, personally, a knock on the mead, but it's definitely far beyond the norm. But I didn't want to beat the mead up just because there were some things that were atypical. So I only docked 1 point here because I did truly think this was an excellent mead, especially if you're going to add some other interesting ingredients into it. They did a great job. Example of style, I did give a 9 out of 10. So that does leave a total score for Crafted Artisan Meadery's Bananas Foster Forever. Gets a 91 out of 100. Guys, well above average. I mean, I've had very, very great luck with meads. I mean, they're just a very interesting and unique drink. If you're into craft beer, I think if you've never had a mead, give yourself a chance and give it a whirl. They're typically going to be quite a lot sweeter than, you know, beers that you typically drink, unless you're drinking, you know, a bunch of milk stouts and things with lactose or lactose added sours and things of that nature. But they pack such an interesting flavor complexity into them, even if they don't have other added ingredients like the banana juice and the vanilla and the coffee in this one. Even without additives, mead, I highly recommend. It's one of the oldest alcoholic beverages in the world. We've been making this as humans for thousands of years. And the fact that there's been a renaissance in mead making, I absolutely love it, and this is a top-notch mead. I randomly lucked out, found this one at a store. Maybe poke around, see if you could find a bottle. If you're a fan of mead and or a fan of bananas or Bananas Foster, this is one that I would definitely recommend. Folks, that is today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just toggle on your notifications, hit the bell icon. It is right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.